Here's Linda sharing God's heart.
Hello everyone. Psalm 27 verses 9 and 10 read, "Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not leave me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me." In these two verses, we hear David's deep despair as he talks to the Lord, but we also hear him express his confident trust in the Lord to take care of him. He passionately implores the Lord not to hide his face or withdraw his presence from him. In the previous episode, we discovered that David's heart's cry was to seek God's face in verse 8. David had already experienced the Lord's anger, and he did not want to be turned away in anger again. The Lord had helped him so much, and he could not imagine his life without the Lord by his side. David also asked the Lord not to leave him or to forsake him. In verse 9, leave means to desert or abandon, and then forsake means leave behind or neglect. Here are two of various examples in the Bible where a father and then later his son both experience being forsaken by family members. These instances are of Jacob and his son Joseph. The details of Isaac and Rebekah's two sons, Esau and Jacob, is well recorded in Genesis. In chapters 27 and 28, we read that Rebekah instructed Jacob to flee to her brother Laban, who lived in Haran, after she heard that Esau wanted to kill Jacob. She tried to comfort Jacob by assuring him that she would arrange for him to be brought home in Genesis 27, verses 44 and 45. She hoped that Esau would quickly get over the fact that Isaac passed the firstborn blessing to Jacob and not to him. Rebekah seemed to think that it would not take too long before she would have her favorite son, Jacob, by her side again. Isaac commissioned him to marry a daughter of Jacob's uncle Laban in the first two verses of Genesis 28. In verse 7, we read that Esau saw that Jacob obeyed his father and mother and went to Haran, where Laban lived. This was by no means just around the corner. Jacob would have walked 800 kilometers or 500 miles to journey from Beersheba to Haran in minimum 20 days if he managed to average 40 kilometers a day. On the first night of his journey, the Lord spoke to him in a dream, saying, "I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave or neglect you until I have done what I have spoken to you." Jacob named this place Bethel, which means house of God. Once Jacob arrived in Haran, he lived with and worked for his uncle Laban for 20 years and married Laban's two daughters, Leah and Rachel. His 12 sons formed the tribes of Israel, and he also had a daughter, Dinah. The assumption is that his twin brother Esau's anger had not abated, because there is no record that his mother ever sent for him during the 20 years he was in Haran. I would not be surprised if Jacob perceived this to be an abandonment by Rebekah. But God, but God, but God. I love to say these things, but God. The Lord did not forget his promise to Jacob and never left his side. The Lord took care of Jacob as he promised and brought him back to the land of his family. According to Psalm 27 verse 10, God took care of Jacob when his father and mother forsook him. And now we have another example of family betrayal where Jacob's favorite son Joseph was involved. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers and taken to Egypt. 22 years later, when Jacob had sent 10 of his sons south from Canaan to Egypt to buy food because of the severe famine in the whole region, the brothers reminded each other of Joseph's anguish when he pleaded with them not to neglect and leave him behind 22 years prior. They had no idea that in the meantime Joseph had been promoted to second in the land only to Pharaoh. Later, when Joseph revealed himself to the brothers, he told them not to be distressed or angry with themselves for selling him into slavery, because in the end, lives were saved when God sent him before them. The lives that were saved were not only those of Joseph's family, but also the lives of the people of the whole region. So in both cases, although Jacob the father and Joseph the son were betrayed and left behind and neglected by family members, God took care of both of them and blessed them in ways they could never have imagined. Perhaps you've also been neglected or betrayed by family members as I have. I pray that you will be able to testify as I do that God is faithful and is well able and willing to take care of you in every way possible. The Lord is bigger than the plans of the enemy, and He is true to His word that He will never ever leave or forsake us. I pray that each one of us will be able to look back and see how that He has been our deliverance, our welfare, our safety, and our victory. I believe that the Lord's heart for everyone is just as the stories of Jacob and his son Joseph are recorded in Scripture, so your story and my story are recorded in God's book that He wrote for us before we were even born. Each one of us have our own God-authored story from His book. As we cling to Him, the story that He has written for us in His book is coming to pass. Let us remain and walk in the light of His word, and we will never walk in darkness, wondering which way to take.